Om Gyanatimandasya Gyanandana Salakya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. So, on this day of Ram Navami, we are very happy to be able to speak a little bit about the glories of Lord Ramachandra. In our Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the names of Krishna and Ram and Hari are found, and it is said that the name of Lord Ram is present there and means Ramanti Yogino Nante Satchananda Chitatmani Iti Rama Padena So Param Brahma Vidiyate. It is said that the name Ram embodies transcendental pleasure. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita, is also describing about Lord Ramachandra. And he is saying that Lord Ramachandra is the full manifestation of the Lord. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, it is said that there are three manifestations of the Lord who are Sadaishvarya Purna, who are full of six opulences. And one is Lord Nrsimhadev, then Lord Ramachandra, and then Lord Krishna. It is said Lord Nrsimhadev, he is specifically showing the power of the Supreme Lord. But Lord Ramachandra is showing the sweetness of the Supreme Lord. And then, of course, Lord Krishna, he shows his amazing transcendental pastimes. So it is said that the sweetness of the Lord increases more and more. These manifestations of the Lord, Rupa Goswami says, are the Paravasta, manifestations of the Lord, or the complete manifestations of the Lord. Now, in the case of Lord Ramachandra, he shows more sweet pastimes than Lord Nrsimhadev. So it is said that one time Lord Ramachandra went into the forest, and as he was leaving a part of the forest, the trees in that part of the forest, they started crying tears out of separation. Then Rupa Goswami explains, he says, but when Krishna goes into the forest, then every day the trees are crying tears of ecstasy. So in this way, in the incarnation of Krishna, the Lord's, the sweetness of his pastimes is increased many, many times, and he is showing deeper manifestations of love. Nonetheless, in the form of Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is displaying many amazing pastimes. So let us begin, and let us begin to contemplate on what took place before the Lord appeared in this world. It is said that that Kuvera had been given, who was the leader of the Yakshas, had been given this very opulent abode by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, namely the island Lanka. But Ravana, he was very envious. Kuvera was his half-brother. And Ravana tried to increase his power. So he was performing great austerities. And in the course of these austerities, he took many benedictions. And he took benedictions that he would not be killed by any demigod, by any asura, by any great personality in the universe. But he didn't bother to take benedictions to be protected from humans and animals. Right? And of course, in this way, although Ravana thought he was perfectly protected and no one could really kill him, he was not protected from humans or animals. And of course, that's where later the difficulties began. So, Ravana. Ravana means one who brings others to tears. Ravana was very cruel. We were this morning listening a little bit to a lecture of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who reminded us that Jai and Vijay, the two gatekeepers in the spiritual world, once stopped the four Kumaras. The four Kumaras, although they were in the form of children, they were great sages. And so the four Kumaras, they had decided to not grow up and to just remain in the bodies of children so that they would be free from the influence of the material energy. So they were transcendental sages and the eldest sages in the universe. They were not allowed to enter into the Vaikuntha regions. And as a result, they became upset and they cursed the two doorkeepers. And then these doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, had a chance. They could take 7 births as a devotees or 3 births as a demon. And in the end, they chose for 3 demoniac births. So in the first birth, they were Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha. In the second birth, they were Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Right? So as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, they were, they both performed their austerities. And they both got their benedictions. When Kumbhakarna asked for benedictions, there was a slip of the tongue. Saraswati could see that this demon is now becoming so powerful that she made him ask for a benediction, and he had a slip of the tongue, and he asked for to be sleeping, right? Of course, it was. They were very upset and could understand that this situation had been unfairly manipulated. So finally, a compromise was reached that Kumbhakarna would sleep 6 months of the year, and 6 months he would be awake. And these two demons, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, were just extremely, extremely powerful. We find a description how Ravana is flying in the sky in his Puspaka Viman, and we see that many of the Asuras are all flying in the sky on their various animal carriers, and they would just descend on places where sages were performing sacrifice, and they just descend on these sacrifices, kill the sages, eat their flesh. It was just ghastly descriptions. Just in the Treta Yuga, how it was possible. I mean, it seemed even worse than Kali Yuga. Of course, in this In the Treta Yuga, the demons were more powerful. In the Kali Yuga, the demons are equally demoniac, but not very powerful. So these horrible activities were going on, and Ravana was just enjoying his power. He was moving around and found himself unobstructed. Now, at the same time, Ravana brought upon himself some difficulties, right? And we can see that once upon his travels, he saw this beautiful lady in the Himalayas, dressed like an ascetic, and she was performing clearly great austerities. So Ravana was attracted to her and felt lusty desires. So when he saw her, he said, "Who are you? Are you married?" And so on. She said, "No, I am Vedavati, and I am performing austerities. I'm the daughter of a sage. I'm performing austerities to obtain Lord Vishnu as my husband." Ravana said, why would you waste your youth like that? Why would you waste your youth to perform austerities? It's like, now you're young and beautiful. Now is the time to enjoy. She wasn't interested, but Ravana tried to take her by force and tried to pull her by the hair. She then, with her hand, cut her hair. And Ravana, he lost his grip. And she said that now you have polluted this body, so I will give up this body. It is no longer suitable for the worship of the Lord, and I will give up this body, but I will return, right? And I will become the cause of your destruction. So in this way, yes, he had this curse on his head. Once, anyway, Ravana continued, and once Ravana came upon a particular region, and there was his plane suddenly wouldn't go any further, although the Pushpak plane that he had stolen from his brother Kuvera was traveling by mind wherever he wanted to go. It suddenly couldn't move. Then appeared this creature, a short, stocky creature, strong looking, but short, with a monkey face. It was Nandi, who is guarding the abode of Lord Shiva. And Nandi said to Ravana, he said, "This is the abode of Shiva. You cannot pass here. Right? You cannot pass here. So go back and go." Ravana had an authority problem. So he wasn't ready to accept the authority of Lord Shiva. Who's Lord Shiva? Who's he to try and stop me from passing, from going where I want to go? I can go where I wish. And then he also blasphemed Nandi. "And who are you? Who are you? A monkey to tell me anything?" Right? Then Nandi cursed him and said that the monkeys would be the cause of his downfall. So in this way, Ravana brought various curses upon himself. And yes, Ravana then became quite upset, and he tried to uplift Mount Kailash. So he was just lifting with his power, he's lifting Mount Kailash. Then Lord Shiva looked down, and Lord Shiva then just pressed his toe and Ravana's hands became caught under the mountain. So in this way, Ravana was in a very difficult position. Anyway, then his associates advised him, please worship Lord Shiva, worship Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva let him go. But somehow or other, Ravana convinced himself that Shiva let him go out of fear. And in this way, Ravana was just still convinced that he was all-powerful. Yes, there were so many confrontations like this. So many confrontations. It is said that Ravana also, somehow or other, came upon Bali, right? And he fought with Bali. And he didn't do very well at all with Bali, who was such a powerful monkey. But in that, Bali and the brother of Sugriva, these two brothers were actually demigods who had appeared in this world, or sons of the demigods, and they were extremely powerful. So when Ravana fought with Bali, Bali just tied up Ravana in his tail. And as a result, right, Ravana was suffocating there. Anyway, so then Ravana decided to make a pact with Bali, right? And he made a deal with Bali. So they had an alliance. Later, Sugriva, his brother, would make an alliance with Lord Ramachandra. And Hanuman was the minister of King Sugriva, the monkey king. So, yes, so these are all preliminaries that lead to the point where Ravana is going to engage in the sinful activity of kidnapping Sita. So, Sita is, of course, the eternal consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sita is the eternal associate of Lord Ramachandra. So when Sita appeared first in a form as Vedavati, later, that was a temporary manifestation, and then she took her original form, of the form of Sita. Sita, her birthplace is these days in Nepal. Her father, Janak Maharaj, and she grew up in this place called Janakpur. So it is said that there were two powerful bows that had been made. One was a bow by Vishwakarma, and one was a bow for Lord Shiva, and the other bow was a bow for Lord Vishnu. So it is said that Kamsa, he had the one of Lord Shiva, right? And Janak Maharaj had the one of Lord Vishnu. So it is said that when Sita was only a small girl, let me just this bow was enormous. It took like 300 men to carry the bow. It was something that was like it was practically impossible to lift that bow. What to speak of using that bow, right? But it is said that as a child, Sita was playing, and her ball or whatever she was playing with got stuck somewhere in a tree, and she needed to reach, and she tried to step on the platform of the bow. But in order to do so, she just moved the bow a little bit to the side, and then she stepped on the platform and got her toy out of the tree. So in this way, Sita as a child, unknowingly of what that bow was and so on, just moved it. So although 300 men were needed to lift that bow. So she showed already an extraordinary power, that she was not at all a mundane personality, although supposedly a weak lady. Then, yes, of course, when Lord Ramachandra, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in this world, then his associates also appeared. And this time, the Lord, right, appeared in a human form, and all the demigods appeared amongst the monkeys. So Hanuman was the son of Anjana, and Anjana was a maidservant in the heavenly regions who at one point became afflicted by lusty desires towards a great sage, and as a result, she became cursed. Said, "How can you behave like this? This is not the behavior of a civilized person. You become a monkey." And she was cursed to become a monkey. So she was very disturbed and very upset naturally with this curse. So she begged forgiveness, and then she was told, all right, you will have to become a monkey, but as soon as you will have given birth to a child, you can return to the heavenly regions. So it came to pass, she became a monkey. Then, as a monkey, she gave birth to a son. And then, after the son was had taken birth, she could again return to the heavenly regions. So she said, okay, she was ready to go. But Hanuman grabbed her by her cloth and held her back and said, wait a minute, you are my mother. You cannot go. And, I'm your child and I'm hungry. She said, oh, don't worry. Just, just eat anything that is round and red, which means berries and so on. And she left. It was night when she left. So Hanuman was hungry, and after a few hours, the sun came up and it was round and red. So Hanuman jumped up in the sky, ready to devour that sun. It was then that the sun, that Indra as the Lord of the heavenly regions, took action and threw his thunderbolt and broke the jaw of Hanuman, and Hanuman fell to the ground. And then, of course, Vayu became very, very upset, and Vayu basically stopped all air supply to the entire universe. So naturally everyone was choking, and the cause became very clear. Indra had thrown his thunderbolt to kill Hanuman. Some say Hanuman was already dead. Others say he was just unconscious. Whatever it was, Hanuman was revived, and Hanuman was coming back to consciousness. And then, in order to pacify Vayu, right, all the demigods came forward, and they all gave benedictions to Hanuman. And Hanuman gained great strength, right? Great strength. Some of the strength he received was that even the Brahmastra, Lord Brahma gave him the benediction that even the Brahmastra would not kill him, would just only act temporarily, but would not really act upon him. So in this way, Hanuman became extremely powerful and extremely invincible. In the end, it was Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, who came and who gave Hanuman the knowledge of what fruits to eat and so on. Yes, so that was pretty useful. Anyway, Hanuman as a child was extremely powerful and extremely difficult, very wild and mischievous as children are, and he was too powerful. So it got so much that finally Hanuman became cursed, that he forgot his power, but that he would remember it when he was reminded of it. Yes. So Hanuman then, yes, as he grew up, Hanuman wanted to study. He wanted to study the Vedas from the sun god, because the sun god has a very large chariot, and this chariot is filled with many, many sages. And the sun is always traveling around in this chariot with the sages, discussing the Vedic literature. Yes. So therefore, Hanuman wanted to also join that chariot so that he could hear the lectures on the Vedas. But the sun god remembered that Hanuman came once, so he says, no way. No, 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 no. You cannot enter this chariot. So then Hanuman said, okay, I will not enter the chariot. I will just travel in the sky, and I'll be, just travel in front of you, and I'll travel backwards. And in that way, I'll just hear everything that is being said. So in this way, Hanuman traveled through the sky in front of the sun, hearing everything that was being discussed. And in this way, Hanuman became very, very learned in the Vedas. Very learned in the Vedas. So there was a great king named Dasarath. He was very powerful. And Dasarath was one who could fight in 10 directions at the same time. That means in all directions. So Dasarath was once involved in a major battle. And during that time, his good wife, he had 3 queens, and the youngest queen, named Kaikeyi, was also traveling with him on the chariot at that time. When they were attacked, Dasarath had to defend, and he just was fighting very valiantly and very successfully. However, at one point, the brake pin of the wheel of the chariot came out. So when the brake pin comes out, the wheel just comes off the axis. But then Kaikeyi, she just placed her finger in the hole, and in this way kept the wheel on the chariot. Dasarath was so impressed, that she just rose to the occasion and just was there and just somehow or other, supported him so much that he gained victory in the battle. He said, I'll give you any boon. I'll give you any boon. I'll not just give you any boon, I'll give you 2 boons, right? It's so wonderful. And please tell me whatever you wish. And she said, no, my lord, I'll take them later. Right? And so Kaikeyi had been granted 2 boons, which she saved for later. Yes, Lord Ramachandra, prior to his appearance, one day, the elderly king, Dasarath, came to the palace, came to the royal assembly hall. As he entered through the gate, there was a huge drum, at least a few meters in diameter, and a man with huge sticks sitting next to the door. And as the king was walking through the aisle of the royal assembly hall, the servant was beating the drum. Dum, dum, on the rhythm of the steps of the king. And so the all-powerful ruler, Dasarath, the ruler of Ayodhya, walked into the royal assembly. The king then After everyone was seated, then the king expressed his dilemma. He expressed that although everything in the kingdom of Ayodhya was auspicious, there was one great calamity, and that up to this point he did not have a son. Yes. So then, okay, then there was a big discussion with various ministers and dignitaries as to what to do. And it was felt that they needed to perform a yajna, and the yajna needed to be performed by a brahmachari who was pure. Now, somewhere in the forest, there was a sage, and this sage, he had a son, and the son named Rishyasringa. Rishyasringa had grown up in the forest. The sage had protected him and had made arrangement for him to live as a brahmachari, as he was making sure that he would never ever get in contact with any female. Then, in the entire forest, there, by the mystic power of the king, there was no female influence. All the trees, all the insects, all the animals, males only. Male only. Like that, the young man, Rishyasringa, never ever saw a female or anything female in his life. Therefore, it was thought that this boy, Rishyasringa, should be the priest to perform a yajna for the king. So, yes, they were trying for that, yes. And on some pretext, right, they managed to call away his father for some function to be performed in a neighboring kingdom for King Romapad, and then Rishyasringa was alone in the forest. Then they dressed up this young lady like a brahmachari, and she went into the forest. Anyway, so after that episode, Rishyasringa changes ashram. And after Rishyasringa changes ashram, yes, then Rishyasringa is chosen to become the priest. And he performs this yajna. And then from the yajna, this personality appears who offers payas, a pot with kheer, which is divided over the wives of Dasara, who subsequently are conceiving sons. The oldest queen, Kausalya, became the mother of Lord Ramachandra. The second queen, what was her name? Suniti? No. Maybe. Second one. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I'm a little in doubt. Could be. Anyway, that second king, she had the second queen. She had also two sons, and finally, the final son, Kaikeyi, she had Bharat as her son. Okay, okay. So now we have, as brothers, we had Lakshman and Satrughna, and Bharat as the son of Kaikeyi. So it is said that these four, in the Vishnu Dharmottara, it is stated that these four are the manifestations of the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sangharsham, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that that we're dealing here, that Lord Ramachandra is Narayan, that Lakshman is Shesha, and that Bharat and Satrughna are the conch and the club, right? So Rupa Goswami explains that that's just a different kalpa. Sometimes the Lord and his brothers are the Chaturvyuha, and other times they are the, like I said, Lord Narayan, Sesha, and the conch and the club. That is also making it clear then what the manifestation of Lord Ramachandra is. That he is, in that sense, an expansion of Lord Narayan. Yes. And of course, Lord Ramachandra grew up and was he was just, his father was just totally absorbed in this amazing son. Lord Ramachandra was just the source of all pleasure to his father. All pleasure to his father. And yes, so the situation unfolds that the sage Vishwamrita comes and asks for Dasarath for his son. And like Dasarath is like, he is experiencing a great dilemma because how can he say no to the request of any Brahmana, of any sage? On the other hand, how can he say yes, right? And by Dharma, he cannot say no. But what does Dharma have to do with it when it comes to love? When it comes to love for his son. So Dasarath was thinking these things. He said, like, what do I care about Dharma? I will not give my son. But then he thought, no, but if I don't show my son the example of Dharma, then what will he become? So I cannot say no. So he was forced to let Ram go and Lakshman with Vishwamrita Muni. Well, that was, and of course then we get, they learn astras from Vishwamitra, and they have to fight and kill this demoness, this huge witch, and so on. And so then Ram begins to show his prowess. And subsequently also, we are seeing how Ram goes to Sita's Swayamvar. And there, Lord Ramachandra, it is said that whoever was desiring to marry Sita would have to lift that bow, string the bow, right? And Lord Ramachandra, different princes tried, and some managed to lift the bow, but no one could string the bow. Lord Ramachandra easily strung the bow, then pulled the string and broke the bow. It was then that Parsuram appeared. And Parsuram, who was the chastiser of the upstart Kshatriyas, was ready to act upon Ramachandra. But then he lost his power in front of Lord Ramachandra. And he realized that Lord Ramachandra was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although initially he had not. So in this way, Lord Ramachandra then came back with with a wife, right? Arrangements. He won the Swayamvar. Arrangements were made for the marriage. Quickly, messengers were sent, and the royals from the house of Ayodhya, they came to Janakpur, and a big double marriage arrangement was made because Lakshman was married at the same time to the sister Urmila. So in this way, we could see that after their youth and after sort of having been trained, the two princes came back with their wives. Yeah, so everything, they were not children anymore, now being married and so on. So since Ram was the crown prince, then was that idea to crown Ram as the king the next day. The coronation was being planned and so on. It was then that Mantara, the maidservant, the hunchback maidservant of Kaikeyi, just went to the quarters of Kaikeyi and saw Kaikeyi lying on the sofa and and she said, "How can you just be lying here?" And Kaikeyi says, Mantara, what are you all getting worked up about now? Calm down, no, everything is fine. Don't you know what's going on? Ram is to be crowned as king tomorrow. Kaikeyi said, yes, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, Mantara said, don't you have any intelligence? Don't you understand what will happen? Don't you understand that, now, oh yes, Kaikeyi, now you are the favorite queen of the king. But that will not continue anymore. When Ram will become the king, then his mother, yes, will come to the fore, and you will be forgotten, O Kaikeyi. Do you realize? So eventually Kaikeyi became influenced and began to get worried about it. And it was Mantara also to go to Dasarath, ask him for the benedictions. Ask him 2 benedictions. 1, that Ram will be banished to the forest. 2, that Bharat will be crowned king. So yeah, all this took place. Then, yeah, we get the pastime of Sitaram and Lakshman going to the forest. Yeah. And of course, Dasarath was in the greatest separation. Dasarath was heartbroken. It was a huge thing. He couldn't even speak. But Kaikeyi was relentless. And then Ram is leaving. Ram said, Mother, why did you use those boons? If you would have just asked me to go, I would have gone. Just on your say-so. Ram wanted Sita to stay back, but no. Sita wanted to come. She said, no, I should follow my husband wherever he goes. So in this way, Sita also comes to the forest. Yes. And, the entire pastime, as it carries on, is showing how everything is going on by destiny. It is not just going on by a human plan. Things were not going according to the plan of Dasarath. Things were not going according to the plan of Sita. Things were just evolving, and somehow or other, the unthinkable came to pass that Lord Ramachandra, the most qualified, most glorious ruler that had ever walked on earth, somehow or other was now being banned from the kingdom. Was there a greater injustice? But Lord Ramachandra never saw it like that. He didn't take any, he didn't consider any injustice or anything like that. Lord Ramachandra, he was simply very joyful. Everyone else was heartbroken. Everyone else was just feeling totally destroyed. But Lord Ramachandra was just totally blissful, unaffected, nirapeksha, not touched by all these things. Being completely transcendental, he had absolutely no interest in any kingdom in this world. So he was Atmaram, satisfied within the self. So therefore, he was completely peaceful. So, yeah, many things, of course, transpired in that forest. It's described how Guha, the king of the Nisadas, was making arrangement for Lord Ramachandra, Lakshmana and Sita to cross the river. All the residents of Ayodhya had followed them up to the river. Then Lord Ramachandra, he changed his dress into tree bark. Bharat, meanwhile, who had not been there initially, Bharat, who had found out from his mother what had happened, was so upset. Bharat, somehow or other, ruled the throne without sitting on the throne, but placed the shoes of Lord Ramachandra on the throne. And as Lord Ram was dressed in tree bark, Bharat was also dressed in tree bark. And as Lord Ramachandra had to stay in a simple hut in the forest, Bharat also did not stay in the palace, but stayed in a simple hut. In this way, although Bharat was looking after the kingdom, he was not enjoying the kingdom. Yeah, when Guha took the Lord and his consort and brother across the river, it was evening, and they were getting ready to rest for the night. It was then that Lakshman stood guard for the entire night. It is said in the entire 14 years in the forest, Lakshman never slept. Lakshman stood guard every night. In the Ramayana, there's a description how there was a group of wasps, and they were all intoxicated from drinking from the flowers. But there was one wasp that was sober, and he was leading all the others. So Ram pointed out like that the ones who are intoxicated with the material energy should follow a spiritual master, should follow one who is sober. Sita thought it was really funny looking at those insects and so on. So she cracked up, and in this way released all the tension that she had been facing. Yes. And then, then they have they travel through the forest, find their location where they'll reside, and make a nice ashram there, and everything going on fine. But then this Suparnaka, the sister of Ravana, who appears there, who is attracted to, takes the form of a beautiful girl who is attracted to Ram, and but Ram is saying no, he's already with Sita. Then Suparnika is getting envious of Sita and is ready to eat Sita. Then, yes, they cut off the nose of Suparnika, who is returning to her brother, injured, defaced, and ready for revenge, and who tells that what this Ram did to her, and then tells his brother about the beautiful wife of Ram, and in this way incites Ravana to kill Ram and take Sita. And so the scene is set, and Marichi is arranged to take the form of a golden deer to distract Lord Ramachandra. And Sita wants the golden deer, and Ram is going to catch the golden deer. And then suddenly, the voice of Ram, help, Sita, Lakshman, help. At that time, that golden deer is luring Lord Ramachandra away, who knows it's a demon, and who kills it. Meanwhile, they hear the voice of Ram calling out, Lakshman, Sita, help, help. At that point, Sita says, it's Ram, he's in trouble. Lakshman said, no, he told me not to leave here. He told me not to leave here alone under any circumstance. Then Sita says, oh, now I see. Your brother is in trouble, and you are not willing to help because you are interested to possess me. This was like a dagger in the heart of Lakshman. And so Lakshman subsequently, all right, I will go. But he drew a protective circle around Sita, telling her not to step out of the circle. And so it came to pass that, that Sita was alone. Then Ravana came in the form of a sannyasi. Somehow or other got her to step over that protective line, managed to kidnap her and take her off to the south. So I want to go this far now in the Ramayana. Later today, I'll talk something about the battle. And what I want to, so this is part 1, and then later today I'll do a part 2 in the afternoon. So we're seeing here, right? We're seeing that although Sita is obviously completely pure and dedicated, but because she is a woman, she also has some naivety and can be taken advantage of by a unscrupulous person like Ravana. One who is driven by lust, and one who is full of deceit, and one who is just cruelty personified. So this is the first half of the story, really, like leading up to the situation where Sita is kidnapped. And in the second half of the story, it's about getting Sita back. The Ramayana is a book which has it's centering around Dharma. It is centering around giving the perfect example. Lord Ramachandra is always acting according to the prescribed rules and regulations in the scripture. Lord Ramachandra's main focus is Dharma. When we are looking at Lord Ramachandra, he is the personification of following the principles of scripture by example at all times. Whereas when we look at Krishna, Krishna is, Lord Ramachandra is acting as the perfect example to man, and Krishna is showing the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna, he can have pastimes with other men's wives. He can steal. He can do so many things because Krishna transcends Dharma. Krishna shows his own morality, that devotional service to him is the ultimate. So Krishna shows the mood of the spiritual world, and Lord Ramachandra shows us the path of Dharma through the material world. So the path of Dharma is elevating. The path of Dharma is blessing us in so many ways. But we also see how the path of Dharma is falling short. Because at the end, when Sita is regained from Ravana's captivity, after Ravana has been killed, and Sita is brought before Ram, then Ram says, Sita, now you can go. Because you stayed the night in the house of another man, I cannot take you back. Sita, however, is entering into fire. She calls that, may I enter into fire, and may I burn to ashes if there's any fault upon me. But Sita comes out of the fire unharmed. So her chastity is proven. So in this way, Sita can be reunited with Lord Ram. But later in Ayodhya, when they live there as king and queen, one day there is some man who makes a statement to his own wife. You spent the night in the house of another man. I will not take you back. Right? I'm not like our king, like Ramachandra, who acts immorally. Then Ramachandra's heart broke into 1,000,000 pieces because he realized he had to do the unthinkable. He had to send away Sita. That is the greatest disaster. So the Ramayana doesn't have a happy end because it ends with Lord Ramachandra sending Sita away. Because Dharma rules somehow or other. He, as a king, has to give the perfect example. So, whereas in the pastimes of Krishna, love rules. Krishna breaks Dharma. To save Arjuna from Bhishmadev, Krishna breaks his promise. He takes up a weapon to fight Bhishma, although he had promised not to. Because Krishna transcends Dharma. Love is higher than Dharma even. Although Dharma or principles of purity are the foundations for expressing that love. Still, a step further, we see that in the pastimes of Krishna, it's pure love that reigns. In this way, we are looking at the various manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And on this appearance day of Lord Ramachandra, we pray to Lord Ramachandra. We bow down at his feet and pray again and again for his mercy, that we will get the strength to walk this path of prescribed duty. All right, so I'll take a break now, but I'll again speak this afternoon at 4 o'clock that is South African time, Central European time, same, 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'll continue with part 2, which is somehow or other the search for Sita and trying to regain Sita from the captivity of Lord of Ravana. Thank you very much. Shri Raghupati Ram ki jai. Ram Raghava ki jai. Shri Ram Navami Maha Mahotsava ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. See you all at 4 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing our meditation on Lord Ramachandra on this day of Ramanavami. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is very merciful. Advaita Machad Anadim Ananta Rupam Ajam Purana Purusham Noviyovanamscha. That the Lord appears in many forms, again and again, unlimited forms. Nanavataram akarat bhuvani sukimtu. So, as the Lord appears in Nanavataram, in so many different incarnations, in each of these incarnations, the Lord is manifesting His mercy in different ways. In the incarnation of Lord Ramachandra, the Lord is manifesting His mercy in a very intimate way. Because as Lord Ramachandra, the Lord is displaying many human pastimes. If you look at Lord Nrsingadev appears, there is a short confrontation with Hiranyakasipu, some of the other demons, and then basically then comes Prahlad, pacifies the Lord, and so on with prayers, and then it's over. But when it comes to the Ramayana, right, these are very extensive pastimes. So the Lord is in the form of Lord Ramachandra, showing many, many pastimes. And only with Krishna are we also seeing extensive pastimes being displayed. So therefore, Lord Ramachandra is a very merciful manifestation of the Lord. And it is sometimes said that Lord Ram is almost Krishna. We mentioned this morning that the difference is that one is Lord Ramachandra is giving the example of following Dharma and living the life of pure, the life of purely following the injunctions of the scripture. And Krishna is showing the transcendental. Krishna is showing, whereas Lord Ramachandra is showing an example based on duty, and duty which is followed just under all circumstances, never deviating from duty. Krishna, he shows the path of love. He shows that love rules, right? Krishna's interactions are all about displaying that love, and duty is secondary. That he will, he may deviate from duty, but what can be done? Krishna is simply showing the unalloyed transcendental love from the spiritual world. So Krishna sometimes gets involved in things that are not considered moral, like the parakiya relationship with the gopis, the forbidden relationship of a paramour relationship, which in the material world is considered abominable. But on the spiritual platform, it's the highest, because there one can never take Krishna for granted. There the paramour has to always conquer the partner again and again. So in this way, the story of Ramachandra. So today, because it is a special day, the day of Ram Navami is one of the most important days in on the Indian subcontinent. Lord Ram appeared 1 million years ago, and Lord Ram is still remembered today, right? After 1 million years, still has a big impact on Indian society at large. So the story of the Ramayana, of the pastimes of Ram, are that at one point his wife Sita is kidnapped by Ravana, who has taken her away to the south. It's not quite known where, but somehow or other Ram goes to the south. And as Ram is traveling to the south along with his brother in search for Sita, they come across Hanuman. Hanuman, who is of course a monkey, but not your ordinary monkey, rather a very elevated and very powerful personality, very learned and full of great powers, being the son of the Devatas, of the demigods who reside in the higher regions of the universe. So there's a whole race of such monkeys, and an alliance comes about between Lord Ramachandra and the monkey army. The monkey army then is scouting out the whereabouts of Sita, and eventually it is found that Sita is kept on the island Lanka. This island Lanka is, of course, a very isolated place, difficult to reach. There, Ravana lives in his kingdom. The kingdom is extremely opulent. There are many golden palaces. It is very fortified. There is a huge moat, a moat around the city of water filled with dangerous aquatics. Right? So no one could go in that water without being eaten by some ferocious crocodiles, fish, or whatever. There are major gates in the city, a very high wall, and the gates have then bridges that come down, and these gates are guarded by machines. So there are war machines that protect the gate. There are armies that protect the gate. So it is a very well fortified city, and there Ravana has his residence. Ravana and his people are of a race of Rakshasas, man-eaters, so it is described. They are cannibals. And so a rather intense group of people, very vicious, and really Ravana literally translate as one who is causing others to cry. Right? So Ravana is a very cruel person who is very infatuated with his own power and is trying to lord it over the world. Now, in earlier interactions, and that we discussed this morning, Ravana has brought several curses upon himself. Vedic literature is full of curses, where some saintly person is being harassed and then will will just say that great misfortune will come upon you. Like when Ravana tried to take the female saint Vedavati by force. He grabbed her by her hair and she cut her hair with her hand, and Ravana fell backwards. Then she cursed him. And she said, "You've defiled my body. Now I will give it up, but I will return in my next body and will be the cause of your death." So Ravana had several curses on his head. Once he also tried to take by force another lady, Ramba, and who was actually the wife of his nephew. And he tried to take his nephew's wife by force in public, in front of anyone and everyone. And it was a highly embarrassing situation. And his nephew, Nala Kuvera, couldn't do anything about it because he knew Ravana is too powerful. So he just simply cursed him and said, "If ever during your life you will ever touch a woman again against her will, you will die." Now Ravana had some respect for curses. He knew, and that was at least in ancient times, that people had more personal power, and he knew that the words of a curse could have an effect. So he wasn't going to try to see if anything would happen. He just avoided from then on taking any woman by force. Yes, this is the situation of Ravana. So at one point, Hanuman, who went on an advance mission, and he went single-handed to the island Lanka. It was difficult to go to Lanka. It was difficult to go to Lanka. But Hanuman was able to go because Hanuman had great power. However, it is said that Hanuman from his birth on had great power. Hanuman was the son of a demigoddess, but who had been cursed to be a monkey. So Hanuman, as a monkey, was very powerful. He was the son of Vayu, the wind god. And as Hanuman, as a child, had once upset Indra because his mother had been cursed from the heavenly planets, and his mother could return after the birth of her child. So she was ready to go when the child grabbed her cloth. And the child said, "Where are you going?" She said, "I have to go now." He said, no, you are my mother and I am hungry. She said, "No problem. You just eat anything that is red and round." And then she left him. And so Hanuman was in the night. In the morning, the sun was rising and it was red and round. So Hanuman jumped up in the sky, ready to eat the sun. This, of course, Indra became very concerned about this, and Indra threw a thunderbolt at Hanuman, and Hanuman fell almost dead on the ground, which upset Vayu, the wind god, his father, who then cut off the universe from air, and everyone choked. Then everyone came to pacify Vayu and revived the sun and gave the sun many benedictions to pacify Vayu, who again supplied air. So in this way, Hanuman got many benedictions and blessings. He became very powerful. But then Hanuman, because he was only a child, got too powerful and misbehaved using his powers. So then one time Hanuman received also a curse that he would forget his own power, but that he would remember it when he would be reminded of it. So this situation came. And now before, Hanuman stood before the ocean, and Hanuman looked upon the ocean, and all the other monkeys were there. And then there was Jambavan. Jambavan is a personality who had appeared in the beginning of the universal creation. Jambavan was very old and powerful. So Jambavan was aware that Hanuman had great power, but that he had forgotten it. So now it was Jambavan who remembered and who reminded him of his own power. Subsequently, Hanuman took an enormous form and then just stepped on a mountain, not climbed, but stepped on a mountain and just jumped up in the air and flew on the way to Lanka. Hanuman there was looking for Sita and saw Ravana in his palace, saw many queens, and he had never seen Sita, but he had received descriptions about Sita, and he didn't recognize anyone as Sita. But eventually he found Sita in an Ashoka grove, a little garden with Ashoka trees off to the side. And then Hanuman had, as he entered the city, taken a smaller form. So as he had a smaller form, he was like a monkey going around the city, and he was sitting in the trees, seeing Sita. Then he spoke to Sita. Sita thought that maybe it was Ravana who was now harassing her in the form of a monkey, because daily Ravana came and tried to get Sita to surrender to him, but he never took her by force. Anyway, so Hanuman had been given a ring by Lord Ramachandra as proof that he was a messenger. So he showed that ring to Sita. Then she became convinced. Ram is coming with an army and will defeat Ravana. Just hold on, you will be fine. So in this way, we can appreciate how Hanuman was caring for Sita. But then he was discovered, and they tried to capture him, and eventually they did capture him and brought him before Ravana. And Ravana was trying to punish this monkey. The monkey was saying that he came as a representative of Ram, and that Ram would come and destroy the city of Lanka unless he would return Sita. Then Ravana, to punish the monkey, decided to arrange that they set fire to his tail, and they wrapped cloths with oil and so on and set it on fire. And Hanuman jumped up with his tail burning, and all the Rakshasas, demons, were laughing like anything. But then Hanuman jumped here, there, everywhere and set fire to half the city of Lanka. And this way, Hanuman then, after setting fire to half the city of Lanka, took a great jump through the sky and jumped back to the shore of India. Now, here, so far, the story of the Ramayana. Now we can look a little bit, and we can look at Ram. Ram is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He's an avatar. Ram is an immediate expansion. Therefore, Ram is, as an incarnation, taking up the particular mission that incarnations take up. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the incarnations, their mission is paritranaya sadhanam vinasya saduskritam dharma samstarpanatya sambhavami yuge yuge. That the incarnations, they appear again and again into this world, and for the purpose of establishing the principles of religion and annihilating the demons. Yes, so this is what was happening. The Lord Ramachandra came to establish the principles of religion and to annihilate the demons. He himself is acting in complete righteousness. He's always righteous. He's always acting proper in any situation because he has no selfishness. He's free from any self-interest. Therefore, he can sacrifice his personal interest for the higher spiritual principle and duty. And that, of course, is the essence of Dharma. That we can sacrifice our self-interest. As soon as we have self-interest, a personal agenda, then Dharma becomes very difficult. Because conflicts will arise, and then we will not be able to follow that prescribed duty. Then we will, that will make us deviate. But Ram just shows consistently that he follows the injunctions of scripture and just acts in that way. And that is just the way Lord Ramachandra conducts himself. Never ever does he deviate from the principles of religion. Now, as I said, Ram connected to the monkey army. Now, it started that Ram and Lakshman were two brothers alone in the forest, now looking for Sita, and they met Hanuman. Hanuman was the minister of Sugriva, the monkey king. That monkey king had a particular difficulty with his brother, Bali. For some reason, once Bali, the two brothers were together, Bali was the eldest. Then once there was a great demon and there was a big fight. And Bali went into a cave and he fought with this demon in the cave. But then there was a terrible scream, the voice of Bali. And Sugriva, his younger brother, was afraid. The fight had been going on for days. So he's afraid the demon would come out of the cave now. So he quickly put a big boulder in front of the cave. Bali, however, defeated the demon, tried to get out and realized that that a boulder had been placed at the opening of the cave and that he couldn't get out. Then Bali was thinking that his brother must have done that because his brother was after his wife. Then his brother, he, in due course of time, did marry the widow of his brother. So eventually Bali came out of the cave, saw that his brother had married his wife. Well, then he was out to punish his brother and almost killed him, severely beat him. So his brother retreated to a particular area, a particular mountain, where Bali there was a curse on his head that he could not set foot on this mountain. If he would do so, he would die. So he didn't go there. But every day, Bali came flying in the sky and with a huge jump. And then he would kick the head of his brother Sugriva and then fly off and then land just outside of that particular area, that problem area, and where he couldn't go because he had been cursed. In this way, Bali would just punish and torture his brother daily. So it came to a point where the enmity between these two brothers had grown to a point where were arch enemies. So Lord Ramachandra made a pact with Sugriva that he would help Sugriva to fight against his brother and Sugriva would help Lord Ramachandra to find Sita, who had been kidnapped. So this was going on. So what then ensues is there is a fight between Lord Ramachandra and Bali. But what kind of fight is it? Lord Ramachandra was hiding behind a tree. And then from that ambush, from behind the tree, he shot an arrow at Bali. And he just pierced him and mortally wounded him with that arrow. Then he came out from hiding. And Bali, lying on the ground, was saying, "What is this? What is this? Are you the famous Ramachandra? Are you the famous example of morality? How could you attack me from an ambush, from behind a tree like a coward? Why didn't you challenge me for an open battle? According to proper codes of conduct, you could have not acted in this way. Now I've seen the truth." And all these words Bali is speaking while he's lying on his deathbed. Then Ram says, "My dear Bali," he said, "what you are speaking about are the rules of conduct for kings. These are the rules of conduct for the Kshatriya kings, who are noblemen." He said, "But you are not a nobleman. You are a wild animal." He said, "And the Kshatriyas, when they hunt and in the forest and wild animals, they shoot them from hiding. That is the appropriate way. And you are an animal because you have mercilessly misbehaved and inappropriately tortured your brother. Therefore, everything that has happened to you is what you deserve." And finally, Bali, on his last breath, said, yes, it is true. It is true. I am, yes, it was according to the principles of Dharma. So it's very interesting because this whole pastime is kind of, looks like the moment where Ram deviated from Dharma. But there's no question that Ram ever deviated from the principles of Dharma. Then we get the final situation where Hanuman has returned from the island Lanka. He had found Sita, and now he comes back with the message. He meets the monkeys who sit on the southern tip of India and informs them about the whereabouts of Sita and how he... And all the monkeys are ready to return to their king, Sugriva. And now, and as they come, they just plunder the favorite fruit orchard of Sugriva. And Sugriva can understand. They must have found Sita, because they would have never dared to do so if they hadn't. But they know that if they found Sita, that I will forgive them. And they did find Sita. Then the monkey army is heading towards the south and comes and assembles on the shore of the ocean, facing the island Lanka. It is said that there was a Maha-Oga of monkeys, an army with 64 zeros, that many monkeys, that stood there on the shore. And for 3 days, then Lord Ramachandra became very angry, and just with a glance of great anger looked at the ocean, and the whole ocean became terribly agitated, and all the aquatics became greatly disturbed. And the ocean god Varuna appeared before Ram, and as such the ocean god Varuna, he said that he would give passage to the army, and that they should take stones and write the name of Ram on those stones and throw the stones in the ocean, and that would make a floating bridge which would take them across the ocean to the island Lanka. And so it came to pass. So whereas Lord Ramachandra then embodies is the embodiment of Dharma, of acting according to religious duty, always, under all circumstances. Hanuman is the personification of service. Hanuman is acting as his servant and is just always 100% with his whole being engaged in the service of the Lord. Hanuman then is therefore glorified as a great devotee, because Hanuman had no other interest than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's the ultimate goal in life. We may have so many goals in life. We may have so many desires to fulfill. But all these desires are just simply bringing temporary fruits. Only desires that are related to fulfilling this desire of the Supreme Lord are desires that give us eternal benefit. Therefore, Hanuman, since every moment he was engaged in the service of the Lord, was always, his entire life was auspicious. From moment to moment, everything was bringing him more and more blessings. So Hanuman is the most blessed servant of the Lord. He's the most blessed personality because of dedicating his life in service of the Lord. Ravana is totally the opposite. Ravana is an atheist, doesn't believe in any god. He's thinking that Ram is an ordinary human being. Ravana is thinking that he is the most powerful, and therefore that he is to subjugate everyone else, and that the world is simply his playground for his enjoyment. And so Ravana is always working to increase the facility for his own personal enjoyment, but he is not interested in the welfare of anyone else. And whereas one who is a servant of the Lord is not only a servant of the Lord, but is also a servant of the entire creation. And as one is a servant of the creation, one is also a servant of all living beings, and a servant of the earth, a well-wisher of all living beings, a well-wisher of the earth. And so Hanuman is the well-wisher and the servant of all living beings. His interest is to somehow or other benedict all living beings and help to uplift them in their destiny. Whereas Ravana, his interest is simply to exploit all living beings. So Ravana had a very powerful brother named Kumbhakarna. These two brothers were extremely powerful. It's like Ravana, he was infatuated with his own power. Not only was he very powerful, but he was so much indulging in his own power. And he was just, and therefore he just was cruel and enjoyed it, because there he could could just absorb himself in relishing his own strength. That's particularly what Ravana represents. Kumbhakarna had a particular benediction, and the benediction that he asked for was basically that he could defeat any enemy, but somehow or other there was a slip of the tongue as he was speaking, and he spoke the wrong letter. And so in the end he asked for the benediction to sleep. It was Saraswati, the goddess of speech, who had controlled his tongue and made him speak in that way. Yes. So therefore, it was felt that this was a little unfair. Therefore, a settlement was made, and Kumbhakarna would sleep 6 months, and he would be awake 6 months. Yes. During the time that Ram now came with his army of 1 with 64 zeros, monkeys, over that bridge towards Lanka, yes, then certainly there was a problem. And a great war was about to begin, and certainly there was a need. There was a need for, to mobilize all the forces. So Ravana wanted to wake up Kumbhakarna. The war began, and day after day, the fight went on. And actually, although the Rakshasas thought that it would be an easy fight because they were fighting with weapons, like serious weapons, and the monkeys were fighting with rocks and with trees and such things. But still, there was a lot of damage, and it wasn't as easy as Ravana had thought, and there were big losses, and he lost a whole bunch of his generals, and he lost, there was severe military losses, although they had superior technology. But somehow or other, the monkeys were fighting very voracious. Then it was clear that it was time for Kumbhakarna to enter the battle. But it just happened to be so that Kumbhakarna was in his 6 months of sleep. So this was a great problem. So there was then an attempt to wake Kumbhakarna. So Kumbhakarna not only could sleep, but Kumbhakarna also had a ferocious appetite. So they tried to wake him up by putting flesh under his nostrils. Now I'm saying under his nostrils because he was gigantic, and therefore they just put whole slaughtered animals under his nose, right, which he could smell, right, but which were like tiny, right. They tried to make a huge noise and wake him up like that. In the end, they made a fire on his chest to wake him up. Finally, Kumbhakarna woke up, and as he woke up, he just reached out and grabbed many of the men who had woken him up and ate them on the spot. Kumbhakarna was ready to join the battle. When Kumbhakarna came into the battle, it was horrific. He just drove a huge chariot, plowed through the monkey army, and on the way was devouring them. He was just creating just like losses, damages, which were like beyond anything anyone could imagine. I mean, some started to flee and run, from this gigantic terrible, terrible, terrible personality. But yes, eventually it was Lord Ramachandra. Hanuman fought. Hanuman, but eventually it was Lord Ramachandra who faced Kumbhakarna. And it was Lord Ramachandra who cut him down little by little with his arrows, cut off his arms, and still he was fighting. Still he continued. And then finally, with one arrow, Lord Ramachandra killed Kumbhakarna. Yeah, these are so the demons are somehow or other due to some previous karma. Sometimes a demon is very powerful, and when a person with a very selfish mentality, only interested in his own advantage, becomes very powerful, yes, then such a demon may just sacrifice the lives of many others just for his own personal interest. Just as we're seeing now a useless war raging in the world, and we're seeing a pointless fight, pointless killing, right? And we just see all just because of a demoniac personality. Highly unfortunate. So Ravana was such a personality as well. So only in the end did Ravana come out personally in the fight. Yes. And then he faced Lord Ramachandra. And in that fight, yes, it went up and down. And Ravana, he could take any form at will, but in his original form, he had 10 heads. He had 10 heads. So in fighting with Ravana, when Ravana manifested, sometimes he would manifest these 10 heads and sometimes not. So at one point, Ravana was manifesting his 10 heads. And as they managed to take off one head and then another one, then the first one was back. It's like, he seemed just invincible. It seemed just impossible to kill him. Yes. So sometimes we see that the demoniac forces are extremely powerful. Of course, when anyone is being defeated by demoniac forces, we also see that the persons are getting reactions according to their own karma. Every action leads to a reaction. And so, according to the law of karma, some people's suffering was due. So in that way, the Vedic literature is seeing that there is justice on a higher plane. From the material point of view, there may be injustice, just as we're looking at the at atrocities of war, and we see so much injustice. But on a higher plane, everyone is getting what is due to them, and the Supreme Lord is ultimately in control and behind everything, and he is always acting in a just way. It's not that he makes mistakes, that he treats inappropriately. Whatever he does is rather perfect. Yeah. Anyway, so the Ramayana is a book that then shows us great dedicated personalities. Eventually, Lord Ramachandra managed to kill Ravana, right? And it is at that point that Hanuman is again the messenger who goes to Sita in the Ashoka Grove to inform her that she is free now. And he says, he comes into the grove and says, Ravana is dead, now you are free to go. Meanwhile, the Rakshasis who were appointed by Ravana to harass Sita were still with her and still harassing her. So when Hanuman saw that, he said, oh, let me just fix up these Rakshasis. I'll just kill them, And Sita said, no, Hanuman, no. He said, no, it's no problem for me. I can do it in a snap, She said, no, Hanuman, no. Then she told Hanuman this famous story about a hunter who was once hunting in the forest. And this hunter was chasing all the animals and causing so much suffering. And then what happened was that hunter, just as he was chasing and causing fear to all the animals, suddenly stood face to face with a tiger, just with bow and arrow. He was not ready at all to take on a tiger. So suddenly the roles were reversed. The hunter running for his life, tiger on his heels. Somehow or other the hunter saw a tree, managed to shoot up in the tree, climbed up in the tree, is on top in the tree, and there's a bear. Then the tiger begins to speak, and the tiger says, my dear bear, see that man? He is a hunter. He is our mutual enemy. If you kick him down, I will eat him now. Oh. But the bear says, no. No, I cannot do that because he has come to my house. He's my guest. Then the tiger says to the hunter, he says, oh hunter, you see that bear? If you kick down that bear, I will eat that bear instead of you. Immediately, the hunter kicked the bear, who fell down, but somehow or other, at the last branch, the bear was somehow or other able to grab a branch and was still hanging there and escaped death. Then that bear climbed back up into the tree. Now the tiger spoke again and said to the bear, did you see that man, how treacherous he is? You gave him shelter, you took his side, you protected him. What did he do? He just kicked you down. Now I tell you, kick him down before he kicks you down again. No, I cannot do that. No, because the fact that he misbehaves doesn't justify that I will misbehave as well. So this is the story Sita told to Hanuman when he wanted to kill those Rakshasis. The fact that they misbehave doesn't justify that we misbehave as well. So the Rakshasis were not killed, but Sita was freed and brought before Ram. It is then that Sita was tested because Ram said, oh, now you are free. Now you are free to go. It's like, what is this? The whole battle has been fought. So many have been killed. A huge hair-raising battle has been fought to free Sita. She's free, and Ram and Sita are united, and now she can go. He's saying, you can go? What's going on? And it said, Ram said, no, when a woman has spent the night in the house of another man, then she cannot be taken back. Sita then stood up, and Sita spoke out and said, if my purity, if my chastity to my husband is in question, then I will enter the fire. And if I burn in this fire, then know me to be impure. But if I come out of this fire unharmed, then you can understand my purity. So what happened then is that Sita entered the fire, and it was the fire god who presented Sita. Now it is said that at the time when Sita was kidnapped by Ravana, that the original Sita jumped in the fire, and that an expansion, a Maya Sita, an illusory Sita, was kidnapped by Rava. Now that illusory Sita entered into the fire, and the original Sita manifested. So after Sita had shown that she didn't burn by the fire, everyone glorified Sita, everyone accepted her purity, and so Lord Ram accepted her, and they took the puspaka, the plane that Ravana had stolen from his brother Kuvera, his half-brother Kuvera, and that plane would just fly and be steered simply by the mind, automatically. Yes. And that plane, it would increase in size according to the need. It could accommodate unlimited passengers. So Lord Ram took that plane to go to Ayodhya and took all the monkeys with him. When they flew over Kishkinda, then Sita also wanted that the wives of the monkeys would be added. And they also were added, and the plane became a little bigger and flew to Ayodhya, the capital of Lord Ram. Then Ram was there and took over the throne as king, and Sita was besides him, and they were ruling as king and queen. When one day the king, following Vedic custom, went incognito just to see what lived amongst the people, and heard one low-class man in an argument with his wife say, no way, you're not coming back in the house. You spent the night in the house of another man. I'm not like our king Ramachandra, who took his wife back. No. I have principles. I will not take you back. You spent the night in another man's house. And so, at that point, Ram's heart broke into 1,000,000 pieces, because Ram knew that in the course of duty, now, he had to abandon Sita, which just was inconceivable, intolerable, but somehow or other, he had to do so for the sake of Dharma. This is the difficulty with Dharma, when Dharma goes before love. So we see Lord Ramachandra, his religious duty comes first, and then love. But with Krishna, love becomes first, and then duty. And that makes the pastimes of Krishna, the pastimes of the spiritual world, and the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, the example for all of us in this material world. We pray to Lord Ramachandra for strength, that we may follow a path of purity. We pray to Hanuman for a service attitude. We pray to Lakshman, Bharat, Satrugna, the brothers of Lord Ramachandra, that we may, like them, have a humble servant's mood. And we pray, we pray that we may always remember Lord Ramachandra, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is most merciful. He is Patita Pavan. He is the deliverer of the most fallen. So in this way, let us appreciate Lord Ramachandra. Then we'll continue our worship of Krishna, understanding that Krishna is giving what was never given before, the most intimate aspects of love of God. And we will worship Krishna, but always remembering the glories of Lord Ramachandra. thank you very, very much. On this Ramnavami day, I wish you a very wonderful evening, and I hope that you will be able to celebrate somewhere. I am very happy that I could be with you like this online, and just to meditate and remember Lord Ramachandra. Yes, may we always find the strength to walk the path of Dharma, to walk the path of the scriptures. May we always find a spirit of service as displayed by Hanuman. May we always serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Sri Ram Navami Maha Mahotsav Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, and we will meet again.